Grad.
Good timing, Jim.
Where's the golden rule now?
Right now she's sitting in Racine, Wisconsin, and the truck will pick her up Monday morning, arriving in the home port of Humboldt Bay, California on Friday, a week from today.
Yeah.
That's interesting. You're trucking her home, right? You're not sailing her home.
Right. If we sailed her home, we'd have to go through the Panama Canal. And we did seriously consider that and decided it was a little bit too much more of another adventure that we weren't quite ready for.
They're out of water. Yeah.
That too.
Climate
The
change is
Panama
affecting.
Canal is running dry.
Yeah. They don't have enough water for the locks. It's because of climate change.
I thought we're being inundated with melting icebergs, but not in the canal.
Which means that they like to see
So I can hear your kind of an echo of what you just said, Alice. That was interesting. So probably everybody should mute themselves, except those that are going to be speaking soon. And it's now 5 minutes after the hour, so we're going to get started. Welcome, everybody. This is the bi-weekly meeting of the VFP Nuclear Abolition Working Group. We have some very special guest speakers with us today who are going to be talking about some very important immediately upcoming weeks of action for including Diffuse Nuclear War Week of Action, which actually starts this coming Sunday, September 24th, and runs to the 30th. That encompasses the UN International Day for the Abolition of Nuclear Weapons, which is the 26th of September. And then that's immediately followed by, and actually overlaps a bit with the Global Days of Action for Peace in Ukraine, September 30th to October 8th. So Ryan Black is with us. He's coordinator of the Diffuse Nuclear War Week of Action. And Marcy Winograd is with us. She is co-coordinator of the Peace in Ukraine Coalition, and which is taking the lead on the Global Days of Action for Peace in Ukraine. So we're going to start out, we're recording this so we can share with others later on. We're going to start out hearing from Ryan a little bit. I'm going to ask both speakers to say a little bit about themselves so we know them better, and about the organizations they're representing, and then most importantly about what's happening during those weeks of action. Why are we having weeks of action? How many people are involved? How many cities are involved? And how can we, even at this relatively late hour, get even more people involved and mobilized over the next several weeks? So we'll have plenty of time for questions and answers and discussion. And having said that, I'm going to hand it over right now to Ryan Black.
All right. Thank you so much for having me. Well, I guess first off, a little bit about myself. My name is Ryan Black. I'm an organizer with rootsaction.org. I'm the managing editor at progressivehub.net, which is a website that has the latest news that matters most to progressives and also actions you can take right there on the site to do something about it. And then I also lead the Diffuse Nuclear War Coalition, which we're going to talk about here in just a moment. I live in Fort Wayne, Indiana, where I was born and raised, moved back here a couple years ago, and I have a 2-year-old toddler, which is most of my life when I'm not working. So that's a little bit about me. Thank you so much for having me. I guess my toddler is one of the reasons why I'm suddenly very passionate about preventing nuclear war, because I would, like with the environment, I'd like him to have a world to live on even after I'm gone. So I want to quickly talk a little bit about who we are as a coalition, Diffuse Nuclear War, what we organize, what issues we focus on, and of course the week of action we have coming up September 24th to 30th. So who we are a little over 200 progressive organizations and individual organizers around the country working to reduce the risk of nuclear war. As a coalition, we provide resources, guidance, and amplification for local groups. Resources like signs, banners, flyers, which we print for free locally for the organizers to pick up. So if you want to organize with us, we will get signs printed. All you got to do is go and pick them up. We provide guidance like on how to reach out to the media. We provide a template press release. So not every group around the country is having to reinvent the wheel. So we try to make it as easy as possible. And of course, amplification. So that's through social media, of course, but also email blasts to our organizers, local areas, letting them know that, hey, something's going on and inviting them to go. Also sending a big national press release out. And then also just generally organizing days of action and weeks of action is super helpful because it gives every group around the country, no matter how small, just this sense of togetherness and that they're not alone and that they're working together with dozens of other groups to try to make an impact on the same day or the same week. So it's super important. So what are these actions? What are these actions that we're doing? Right now, our week of action is planned for Sunday, the 24th through Saturday, the 30th. We have 38, I wrote this yesterday, so I think it's 39 now, actions organized and a few more still in the works. So these are things like we have vigils in Palo Alto, Tucson, Hilo, Hawaii, and at BART stations in the Bay, which I think is going to be super fun. Demonstrations in Santa Fe. Greg is here from Santa Fe. They'll be doing a demonstration there, as well as some places in Minnesota. We have 4 events in Philadelphia, Baltimore, Milwaukee, several places in Massachusetts as per usual. We have marches in Rhode Island, Salt Lake City, Chico, California. There are 12 picket lines going up in Washington state at every congressional office in the state, pushing to reduce the risk of nuclear war. So that's a huge success up there in Washington. And we have an interfaith gathering in New York City. So really, for diffuse nuclear war, it's up to the local groups to decide what that they're going to do. As long as it's nonviolent, whatever nonviolent organizing they're comfortable with what works for them, what they have experience doing, we support it. That's all good. So besides those things that I've mentioned, leafleting, flyering, music performances, speeches, theatrical performance, Zoom calls like this, film screenings, postcard writing, op-eds, petition signature gathering, even standing outside of movie theaters that are playing Oppenheimer and trying to activate people right there before and after they see that movie. All of that stuff is represented in the coalition, all those type of actions, and we support all of it. All of it is working to reduce the risk of nuclear war. And in different parts of the country, you have different things that matter more, different things that work more. So what issues are we talking about when we talk about reducing the risk of nuclear war? There is like a never-ending list of things the United States could do to reduce the risk of nuclear war globally. It's a never-ending list, and it's not just foreign policy related. And we generally support them all. One thing that works for us as a coalition is that we're not prescriptive in the specific issues that we want groups to focus on. For instance, in the Northwest, there's a lot more of a focus on submarine launched missiles because there are naval yards right there that they're dealing with all the time. In the Southwest, there's more of a focus on downwinders. In the Rust Belt where I live, there's more of a focus on it just being a giant waste of money. So whatever your focus is, that's all good. We support it. We do, however, send out a questionnaire, and we try to figure out what our groups generally care most about, and then we try to tailor our resources and our signs and flyers to those things. So right now, for diffuse nuclear war, there are 3 main things that the vast majority of the coalition says every time we send out a questionnaire that these are the things they care about. And we send out a questionnaire about quarterly. So number 1, diplomacy with Russia. And I'm sure Marcy will talk a little bit more about this with peace in Ukraine, but the coalition members largely support calls for a ceasefire and a negotiated end to the war. The longer the war goes on, the greater the danger of spiraling escalation, which can lead to a bigger war, environmental devastation, and of course, ultimately, nuclear war. We want to stop the killing, agree to a ceasefire, and begin negotiations as soon as possible. Number two, well, the first one, that's our controversial one. That's the one that people get mad at sometimes. Number two is the one that's not talked about enough. And only people in the nuclear space really talk about this. Get rid of ICBMs. That's intercontinental ballistic missiles. This is the land-based part of the nuclear triad, which is land, sea, and sky. Of course, you see McGregor celebrating right now. She's a leader on this issue, especially with Vandenberg. The U.S. is set to spend $264 billion to replace our current ICBMs. There's a growing consensus among nuclear experts, though, that they're just not worth it. They don't protect us. In fact, they're vulnerable, and they make us more likely that we get attacked. Worst of all, they can't be recalled when fired. So if an ICBM is accidentally shot off, that's a wrap. It's going where it's going. So an accident is likely, and it's permanent. They can't move. Russia and China know where they are. They're just like sitting targets, essentially. And they don't really contribute to deterrence because of the other parts of the triad that probably do a better job. Not that we want any of them, but ICBMs is something we should be able to get rid of. The third thing we focus on as diffuse nuclear war is rejoining the nuclear weapons treaties that the U.S. has pulled out of. That's the Anti-Ballistic Missile ABM Treaty in 2002. That's INF in 2019, and that's Open Skies in 2020. All of those pacts would significantly reduce the risk of nuclear war, and we should do everything we can to get back into them. I would add now, just in the last 24 hours, the importance of JCPOA, because now Saudi Arabia thinks that they should have a nuclear weapon if Iran is working to get one. So that's another thing that if the USA, we just redid JCPOA, then Saudi Arabia wouldn't have that talking point. So lots of other shifts: ending the policy of first use, ending presidential sole authority, divesting from militarism, and investing in people. All of these things would reduce the risk of nuclear war. So in closing, for our week of action, we're trying to grow our coalition. We're trying to activate more groups. We're trying to amplify the calls for de-escalation and diplomacy. And we want more people in the streets making noise for peace. So if you know organizers, which I hope a lot of you are, I know many of you, or if you're part of a local group, please, I'd love to connect with you and talk more about organizing. And if you're connected to any electeds, it's so important that we just continue letting them know that these are the things that grassroots activists care about. These are the things that will activate us. These are the things we're worried about, and these are the things we want addressed immediately, and we want them to be leaders on. So diffusenuclearwar.org to learn more, and then you can email me anytime, ryan@rootsaction.org, to get involved with the coalition. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. That's really great. Those are the priorities you just discussed are generally speaking the priorities of this working group and of Veterans for Peace. And we've talked about those things a lot, and they also are reflected in the Veterans for Peace Nuclear Posture Review, which if you haven't seen, we'll make sure you get a copy of that right away. But that's great. I also think it's terrific that you are addressing the growing danger of a nuclear war over the super nuclear power confrontation over the war in Ukraine, which is actually relatively unique for anti-nuclear groups as far as I've seen, but very, very important. Anyway, I've said enough, and I'm going to turn it over now to Marcy Winograd, who's going to tell us about the Peace in Ukraine Coalition and the Global Week of Action for Peace in Ukraine, as well as I hope, Marcy, a little bit about yourself and your own background.
Well, thank you, Jerry and Helen, and everyone on the call here on the Zoom. It's really good to be with you today. I am a longtime anti-war activist, got started in high school, attending moratoriums, marching in San Francisco with hundreds of thousands of people to end the Vietnam War. I volunteered on Dan Ellsberg's Pentagon Papers trial. That was a highlight of my life. Later, I got very involved in the anti-war movement during the run-up to the Iraq invasion and during that occupation. Most recently, I have begun volunteering for Code Pink. I retired as a high school English teacher, government teacher about 6 years ago, and then worked full time basically for Code Pink and taking care of my grandkids. Now I co-chair the Peace in Ukraine Coalition with Bert Noor of DSA International and with the wonderful steering committee of which Jerry is a member. And I'm very involved in broadcasting the messages that Ryan mentioned. In fact, McGregor Eddy will be on Code Pink Radio toward the end of next week, talking about the urgency of eliminating ICBMs. And we're going to play a little video or audio from Dan Ellsberg's YouTube. So yes, we're on it. Now, in terms of the Global Days of Action, I'll give you a brief outline. I'd like to share our website with you and go over where you can find different materials. So this is this film, but maybe we can first go to the Peace in Ukraine website, which is peaceinukraine.org. If you can go to that URL. So basically, the Global Days of Action was a call that emerged from the International Summit for Peace, held in Vienna, Austria, excuse me, earlier this summer in June, attended by Medea and Bert and others from the coalition. And the call was to all of us march, protest, advocate, lobby during this time period, September 30th to October 8th. So I think if you just go to the URL, peaceinukraine.org, it should come up.
Missing the E in peace.
It's not spelled correctly. It's needs a missing an E.
Oh dear. Okay, maybe if you can just spell it or put the correct spelling in there, or if I can try and share the screen. Here, let's see what happens.
You're working on that, Jim?
Peace in Ukraine, PEACE in Ukraine.org. Sorry about that. I was rushing. Anyway, let's see. I'm going to try and share it.
Okay. Going to have it here in a second, looks like.
Okay.
Can you see that?
I can see that, yeah.
Okay.
Well, I could.
I've got it up.
We don't see it.
All right, let me.
Jim needs to not share if someone else is going to share.
I'm going to stop sharing.
Hold on.
Okay.
We will make this happen.
Okay. So following that summit, we got organized and said, hey, we're going to do the same thing here. And we've got events all over the country. And we have some very exciting events planned for DC, but also in lots of home districts across the country. So what are we doing? Here we go. There's the website. And if you scroll down on that page, you can see it says sign up here to join our coalition. You can fill out a form. We have about, 750 people on our mobilization list. We want more. We also have a discussion group where people can talk about, the latest articles and debates and so forth, and learn about the Global Days of Action. And then you can click on that link. But first, let's go to events up at the menu bar, please. Event calendar, yeah, there we go. So if we go down to September, so we have different events, and then, starting the Global Days of Action, September 30th, we have all types of actions. So it could be a banner drop, it could be tabling, it could be circulating petitions, it could just be a street vigil with some of those banners. We have some on our website. I'll show you those in a minute, as well as what Ryan mentioned. And, I was thinking about my time. I was on vacation on the big island of Hawaii, and I went to Hilo, and I joined Jim Albertini for an afternoon, and he had a fantastic banner that was courtesy of Diffused Nuclear War, which we held up. So you can see all over the country. We have Madison, Milwaukee, Boston, Philadelphia, Santa Cruz, Portland, New York City, Albany, Worcester, Minneapolis, and on, different types of actions. And then in DC, if you go back to October 3rd, yeah, okay, there we go. We have Cornel West. He's our keynote speaker in DC. but we also have other speakers, Claudia de la Cruz.
So that Cornell West is going to be live streamed, right?
Yes. So why don't you go ahead and click on that graphic, see where it takes us. So there is where you can sign up, and can you make it in person? No, yes, no. And if not, I think you'll get a link to the live stream. That should be a very exciting event. We weren't sure what should we call it. Should we call it just an event? Should we call it a rally? Should we call it a teach-in? And I think we settled on rally, but it's a teach-in. Okay. And then on October 4th, which is the next day, and on October 4th, if you click on that, if you can go back and click on that, you'll see it's our advocacy day. And a number of us will be on the Hill. I will be there, and Medea will be there. Our communications director will be there. We have people coming from Vermont, from Pennsylvania, I think, from Virginia, all over the place to visit senators. We've been asking for meetings with our respective senators, and oftentimes they'll refer us to the foreign policy staffer. We'll take that. We do want a meeting with Bernie. I've asked for a face-to-face meeting with Bernie. I was a delegate for him in 2020.
No, go there.
Okay.
Sorry.
That's okay. Anyway, I think it's all right. You can take it all down. It's a Peace in Ukraine website, and you can peruse it at your leisure. We have events. We have lots of resources and flyers that you can use that will be very helpful for these events and beyond. But in terms of Bernie, a number of us have been asking for meetings with him because, before the Russian invasion, he had an op-ed in The Guardian, which acknowledged the provocative role of NATO expansion. It didn't in any way excuse Putin. And since then, he's been very clear that he is opposed and condemns the invasion. But he's been really quiet, in terms of pushing for diplomacy to resolve this, and he's voted for the weapons. So we want to talk to him, and I have started circulating a letter specifically from delegates to the presidential nominating conventions for Bernie in 2016 and 2020 to present that letter to him, to his office, and say, hey, come on, we're your anti-war base. We need you because there's no military solution short of an unthinkable world war between nuclear powers. And one question, the other day, a friend said, how do I even approach this with my lawmaker? Because it's so resistant. And so I was recently at an event, and I saw Ted Lieu, right? Who represents West LA, Melanie's representative. And so I said, what am I going to say? I said, Ted, how do you see this war in Ukraine ending? Okay. Not too threatening, opens it up, the conversation. And he said, thought about it. Well, Ukraine will defeat Russia, or Russia will defeat Ukraine. Now, if he really thinks about that, I think he'll probably arrive at the same conclusion, right? That Ukraine is not going to defeat Russia short of many more deaths and other horrible consequences, including those to the environment. So that's what we're talking about. We are the Peace in Ukraine Coalition. We meet once a month, the first Wednesday of the month at 12:30 Pacific, 3:30 Eastern. If you're not a member and you want to join the coalition, it's on the homepage of the Peace in Ukraine website. It says sign up here for the coalition. So I don't know if we want to take
those are on Wednesdays, right?
Yes, Wednesdays. Did I say that? Yeah, Wednesdays. Okay. And then I don't know if we want to just have a conversation or if we want to see that we have a video on.
Well, Marcy, you mentioned the damage of the Ukraine war is doing to the environment, and you have an 8-minute video here to share with us. We have time for that if you'd like to show it.
Sure, if you can.
Jim, can you help get that back up and running? Great.
Yeah, one of the things that alarmed me, besides the nuclear threat, was just learning that like anywhere from 50 to 100, this was 7 months ago, anywhere from 50 to 100,000 Black Sea dolphins had washed up dead on the shore. They think it's because of all the explosions on both sides. It's just
No.
devastating. You know, some people, they don't care about people, but if you tell them 100,000 dolphins have died, you know,
Mm-hmm. That's horrible.
horrible, horrible. And, you know, oftentimes we hear, well, it's a matter of sovereignty. It's up to Ukraine. They're the ones who must make the decisions. And, you know, the coalition, we say, look, you know, this war would not continue without the U.S. funding. We've already funded it to the tune of 115 billion. Biden wants 24 billion, which it doesn't look like he's going to get it, you know, tomorrow because of the threat of a government shutdown and the stalemate over the funding bill for the Pentagon. All right, here it is. War is not green. If you want to play it, let's do it and enlarge the screen, please. Oh, I don't think we have audio.
Jim, you're muted. Maybe that's why.
Yeah, unmute yourself, Jim. That might be the difference.
Hold on.
We played it earlier,
Play it, maybe.
And it worked earlier.
it was a little on the quiet side, but we could hear it.
Yeah.
Well, in any event, the environmental impacts are, as you said, devastating. And we know that rockets, the fuel is toxic. All of these satellites that are operating in Ukraine, they're Starlink satellites. You know, Elon Musk is the CEO, the owner of Starlink. And these are low orbit satellites that are being used as a communication system. Musk provided this for free for a long time and then said, I'm not going to do this anymore. And so he signed a contract with the Pentagon last June. And then he came under fire because he said that he would not allow his communication system to be used for attacks on Crimea. He did not want to start World War III. He did not want to be responsible for a nuclear holocaust. That's what he said then. And so I don't know what the status of that is, but I know on antiwar.com, it was reporting today that there have been, you know, a number of attacks, drone attacks on Crimea.
All right, let's try this.
Okay.
I'm just going with my speakers. I can't seem to get the.
All right, well, don't worry about it. We can just have a conversation.
A dozen nuclear reactors and
There we go.
hundreds of chemical plants. We made this film to point out why a ceasefire and diplomacy are urgently needed to prevent further destruction of the environment in Ukraine, the entire European continent, and beyond. The fate of the human race hangs in the balance. Ukraine accounts for over a third of the biodiversity of the entire European continent. So as the war drags on, 70,000 species of plants and animals risk extinction in what scientists describe as ecocide. Here are 10 ways the war in Ukraine threatens our environment. Russian attacks on Ukraine's chemical and oil storage facilities have released plumes of smoke with toxic particulate matter, gases, and heavy metals that damage the lungs, worsen air quality, and make it difficult to breathe in the industrialized east of Ukraine. Explosions, falling buildings, and trenches and tunnels dug for battle increase the release of particulate matter. Weapons of war, from rockets to missiles to tanks, emit tons of carbon and particulate matter that pollute the air and increase greenhouse gases. Rockets can also produce hydrogen cyanide vapor, which can cause acid rain. The war in Ukraine has caused billions of dollars in damage to Ukraine's agricultural sector, blanketing crops with landmines and destroying farm machinery. Ukraine is one of the world's largest exporters of grains. To ensure the global food supply, it's urgent a ceasefire be declared. Attacks on industrial facilities have resulted in chemicals leaching into rivers and groundwater, contaminating the drinking water for over 1 million people in the Donbass region. Use of explosive weapons by both the Russians and Ukrainians in the Donbass threatens to collapse a water system already weakened by a decade-long civil war in eastern Ukraine, where ethnic Russians battled Ukrainian nationalists armed by the United States. Bombings and fires have not only increased greenhouse gas emissions, but also deforestation and the loss of carbon sinks. Since the Russian invasion of Ukraine and U.S. imposed sanctions on Russian oil and gas, dirty energy companies are gaining new licenses to increase their exports of liquefied natural gas and oil to Europe. European companies have also taken advantage of the energy crisis to increase filthy coal-fired power generation and to keep nuclear plants online that were scheduled to be decommissioned. Marine biologists estimate at least 50,000 Black Sea dolphins have been killed as a result of the war in Ukraine. Whether the cause is contaminated water, exploding mines, or the noise from warships and detonations, dolphin carcasses are washing up on the shores in Ukraine's Odessa region. The loss of dolphins can upset the ocean's ecosystem and make it difficult for fish to thrive.
Okay, grab it,
Sabotage of the Nord Stream pipelines transporting natural gas from Russia to Germany resulted in the biggest single release of methane ever recorded, 500,000 tons released into the Baltic Sea. According to the United Nations, methane traps more heat in the atmosphere per molecule than carbon dioxide, making it 80 times more harmful than carbon dioxide for 20 years after it is released. Initially, corporate media pointed the finger at Russia for sabotaging their own pipelines, but economist Jeffrey Sachs challenged that claim on Bloomberg News. Aside from Sachs, Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist Seymour Hersh later published an article on Substack quoting an unnamed source alleging that President Biden put National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan in charge of planning the sabotage of the pipeline before Russia invaded Ukraine. While Western nations pour tens of billions of dollars into weapons and military training that only escalates the war in Ukraine, the global South, suffering from drought, waits for promised climate reparations. Congress has approved over $100 billion for Ukraine, the amount Western countries were supposed to pay the global South each year since 2009, but did not. Whether the U.S. and NATO countries write a check to cover their massive burning of fossil fuels, their overconsumption and militarism that disproportionately impacts the global South, all of that remains to be seen. Meanwhile, the United States and NATO nations continue to burn fossil fuels at an alarming rate, while sending Ukraine weapons that will emit even more greenhouse gases. Ukraine has 4 nuclear power plants with a total of 16 reactors. The Russian-occupied Zaporizhia nuclear power plant delivers 1/5 of the country's electricity. It is here at Zaporizhia, on the eastern bank of the river, that shelling by Russian and Ukrainian forces has raised the specter of a nuclear catastrophe or meltdown, like the one that occurred at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant in 1986. The accident at Chernobyl, located in Ukraine, but then part of the Soviet Union, spread radiation throughout Europe. An even greater environmental threat is the threat of nuclear annihilation. The war in Ukraine has become a proxy war between the United States and Russia, the 2 most nuclear-armed nations. Since the invasion, Russian leader Vladimir Putin has issued veiled nuclear threats, saying all options are on the table, while President Biden has warned of nuclear Armageddon if the war escalates. A nuclear war between the United States and Russia could result in a nuclear winter that would create global famine and risk the future of life on this planet. We cannot allow that to happen. Everyone who cares about the environment, both organizations and individuals, should join in the growing call for a ceasefire and peace negotiations now. Sending more weapons to escalate the war in Ukraine undermines the possibility of a diplomatic solution, as both sides believe they can win an unwinnable war. Join our coalition, Peace in Ukraine Coalition. Visit us at peaceinukraine.org and join us at Code Pink, codepink.org, to say no to war, no to ecocide, and yes to peace.
No.
It's chaos on Capitol Hill. Lawmakers only have.
Thank you, Marcy.
Thank you.
Somebody asked in the chat, is that Marcy's voice we hear? I think it is.
Yes, that was me.
Marcy's making it happen on multiple fronts, all constantly. So, that's a perspective that is not very well known, the environmental impacts of the war in Ukraine. So I think that's very, very valuable information and should help mobilize even more people to call for a ceasefire and negotiations to end that war.
Yes, and one of the things what I meant to say earlier when I was talking about the Starlink satellites is that when you launch those satellites into low orbit, you are depleting the ozone layer. So there's an environmental impact of that alone, and the rocket fuel contaminating the land and water here.
So those were two very compelling presentations by Ryan Black of the Diffuse Nuclear War Coalition and Marcy Winograd of the Peace in Ukraine Coalition. Happy to say that Veterans for Peace is part of both of those coalitions. We have been promoting these two back-to-back weeks of action the best we can, but we'd like to do more. We have a little over about 10 days before the global days of action for peace in Ukraine begin. That's about over 30 nations participating in that, I understand. But we only have 2 days before the beginning of the week of action to defuse nuclear war. So what can we do, Ryan and Marcy, to take advantage of the time that we do have to really press more people to be involved and make more people aware of these weeks of action?
Yeah. Well, Ryan, you want to go? I'm going to try to share my screen. Wish me luck here, and show you something that will answer that question. Brian, do you want to speak?
Sure, yeah. I mean, people can still sign up to organize if they go to the Diffuse Nuclear War organizing page, which I will post now, our Week of Action page. There's a form there that you can fill out if you still want to do something. Even if it's not during our Week of Action, you can still fill it out and let me know you want signs. I'll still send you some signs, things like that. And just to sign up to be in the loop so that you will get our questionnaire so you can help inform us on what you think we should focus on, when you think we should organize next, and then be in the loop for future emails where we're saying, hey, we're doing another Week of Action or Day of Action. So yeah. Oh, definitely sign up, and then sign up for Peace in Ukraine as well. Marcy,
Yes.
you have what you're looking for?
This is Code Pink on our Act Now page. We have a petition, and you can see we only have a little, almost 4,000. If you can even just make sure you sign this and share it. If that's something that you can do like immediately following this, that would be helpful, really helpful, because this is a petition that we want to present along with some others when we are on Capitol Hill and in congressional offices, and we need more people signing it. But so that's on the Peace in Ukraine website under Act Now here, and we have all sorts of petitions and things that you can do like that. We have Tell Congress to vote no on more weapons to Ukraine, and that's a one-click where you can send a message to your congressperson directly. So again, peaceinukraine.org under Act Now. Those are things, easy things, you can do within 10 minutes of this phone call, of this Zoom. Other than that, you can join an existing event if there is one that's happening in your area. Again, if you go to peaceinukraine.org and you hit on click on the event calendar. You can scroll down and see, well, what's going on? Is there anything happening near me? And if there is, you can RSVP and get the details. If not, and you're really ambitious, you got the energy, why not? You can host your own event. Sign up here. Let's see. Learn more about the global days. Okay, it used to be there. You know what? You can email me, Marcy, MARCY at codepink.org to put up an event. That's easy. Marcy at codepink.org. So those are some things that you can do. You know, people are going to do what they want to do, what they're comfortable doing. We're very clear on that, right? So some people may be comfortable sharing a petition that needs more signatures, writing their congressperson. Some people are more comfortable joining an event and bringing a sign. Some people, you know, they want to write, be home and write, and that's fine too, because we know how powerful words are. It's all about language, right? So
I tell people that even if they can't not in a position to do very much right now, the least they could do, get on with a couple of friends, make a homemade banner or get one of Ryan's banners and get on the internet, put it on social media, let people, that can have an impact as well. And that's a heck of a lot better than nothing. And it doesn't take too much effort. So
can I quickly share my screen real quick?
Oh, sure. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
And Ryan, you have a calendar of events on diffused nuclear war as well, don't you?
I do. I'm going to show that. Is my screen sharing right now? Can you see that?
Great. Yes.
Yeah, look at all that.
So we have a bunch of, if you go to diffusenuclearwar.org/print, I believe my screen is sharing right now.
Yeah.
Yes.
All of these signs here, just a range of issues about nuclear weapons, from generally say no to nukes and diplomacy to more specific, no first.
Whoop, we lost you.
Yeah, Ryan, you froze up on us, but I know you'll be back.
Those look great. Yeah, Ryan, we want you back to tell us about how to access these.
Yeah. Well, one way will be to contact Ryan at Ryan, RYAN, at rootsaction.org.
He did say go to diffusenuclearwar.org and click on print, so that probably will take us there.
Yeah.
Right. I just want to say that last year we got some of these, and they're really high quality. They're not cheap. The banners are heavy quality material, and they really last. Same thing with the posters.
Okay. Marcy, I know that you're going to have to leave us in about 5 minutes.
Oh, yeah.
And I want to invite people here to chime in with their questions and their thoughts about what we can do to mobilize against nuclear war and against and for negotiations to end the war in Ukraine. Any questions or suggestions are very welcome right now, and hopefully we'll get Ryan back with us in a few minutes. But so try to direct your questions to Marcy at this point in time. She's only got a few more minutes with us. Don
And
Smith,
if I can, I'd love to share some of the other resources in case you do want to host a vigil or something. You know, under our resources section, we have these banners that you can print out. We also have a lot of leaflets, and we did an ad with the Pope elevating the call for ceasefire. But we have here a flyer that we just updated, and I think it's excellent and can be used at these vigils. It's a half page, and it talks about the economic impacts, right? This is thievery on working people, and with a QR code that goes back to our petition. So that's that. If anyone, I'll stop sharing the screen. If anyone has questions, I'm here to answer them.
Yeah, Don Smith had his hand up. Don, go ahead.
Yeah. So some people and I.
I can't hear you too well, Don. Can you get a little louder on this?
Some people and I are thinking of doing a teach-in. You know, or a friend of mine wants to do a Ukraine war teach-in. So, I mean, are there existing like slides that we can use for that? I mean, if not, I could help. I mean, I have resources. I could do it too. But you know, if people want to do teach-ins, they need like standard, high-quality slides for that. So if like it doesn't exist, like, I would help with it.
Like a PowerPoint. right?
Yeah, it's like a PowerPoint. Yeah.
Well, I could work with you on something like that. We do need something like that. I agree. And we don't really have something like that. You know, we have the two things that I've been using are one Medea's film that's on YouTube. That's based on her book, War in Ukraine: Making Sense of a Senseless Conflict. It's an 18-minute video, and that's very helpful, you know, for a teach-in. We have a discussion guide. I could pull it up. I could if I could. That you can use. I've had a house. I hosted a house party where I live. I had about 13 people come over with all different opinions. Showed the video. I'm going to try to bring it up here, and then had a discussion about the video. You know, what were your questions going in? What were your questions coming out, or what was answered? That kind of thing. So, if I could, I would bring it up. I'm sorry, I'm not so great at this. Oh wait, here we go. YouTube.
And I'm glad to see Ryan Black is back with us. Ryan, we'll get back to you in a couple minutes.
Sounds good. Sorry about that.
No, it happens.
I think this is the one.
Let's
Yeah.
talk about the heartbreaking work.
This, if you go to YouTube and you say Medea Benjamin, War in Ukraine, Making Sense of a Sense, it should come up. If not the first thing, maybe the 10th. But it should come up, and this is great for a teaching, you know.
Okay, and that's about what, 18 minutes?
18 minutes, yeah.
Okay. That's
Well,
a good
almost
thing.
19 here.
Okay.
And there's a whole discussion guide too that we have on the Code Pink website. If anyone is interested in using this, I will send it to you. We should have it posted here as well.
Don, did you have more to say about
Oh,
that?
here it is.
Your hand
Excuse
is
me, it's
still
right
up.
here. It's right here. The discussion guide is right here on the YouTube page.
Yeah, I think maybe the video is great. I've seen it, but you know, typically in a teach-in, you know, you want it to be more interactive. With somebody talking, it's more personal. So, I mean, if you just show a video, it's people would fall asleep or
Yeah,
just
well,
space out.
we hear you that a PowerPoint presentation would be a useful resource. So Marcy will probably have that for you tomorrow.
Probably not.
But it's a good idea, and
Good idea.
we'll get somebody working on it.
I can work on it too. I have some of my stuff, but
Great.
Yeah, Don, you do it.
Yes,
You raised your hand, it's yours.
okay.
Okay. Well, Marcy, thanks so much for being
Thank
here and for all that you do. And we're really looking forward to a successful week. I'm impressed how many cities are already engaged. That's wonderful. Plus, there's other coalitions involved that are mobilizing their own networks. The United National Anti-War Coalition, UNAC, and also the Answer Coalition. There's other people independently mobilizing for this. So it's going to be a big week. And I think also the week that starts just in 2 days for diffused nuclear war is going to be a very important week as well. And let's get back to Ryan Black. Are you still here, Ryan?
All right, I'm gonna take care. I have to go, but thank you so much, Jerry, Helen, BFP, all of you. It's up to us.
Thank you, Marcy.
Take
We'll
care.
see you soon.
All righty.
I'm going to turn it back over to you, Ryan.
Sure. Yeah. Sorry, my power shut just went out for a minute, and we're back on now.
Okay.
Just to say that.
I just want to say goodbye. We're setting up for our Peace Day celebration here in our Peace Center.
Great.
Which you guys can see. So I'm going to say goodbye. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you for being here, McGregor.
Thank you. Yeah, just to say that whether you're organizing with diffused nuclear war or not, on one of our days of action, weeks of action or not, if you go to our diffusenuclearwar.org/print, you'll get all of the resources that are super easy to print. Rally signs, which can print as big as 18 by 24, actually. They can print pretty big, but most printers don't print that big, so you'll get 11 by 17 or 18 by 12. All sorts of issues on there, legislation, House Resolution 77 and HR 2775, which are both TP&W related. So whatever it is that you focus on with nuclear war, we probably have it. Couple banners, and then a flyer which goes through some of those three big points that I talked about earlier. Whichever one, if you click on it, say no to ICBMs, it'll open up as a PDF, and this is a print-ready file. If you just send that link to a printer, they'll be able to print it without any questions or problems. So try to make it as easy as possible. Reach out to me if you have any questions. Sometimes organizations will say, hey, we want signs, but we want our logo on them. As long as you give me enough time, I'll get your logo on the signs. So we'll make it happen. The goal is to get people out in the streets with the right resources so they can be as big and as loud as possible. So I don't want to take any more time, but yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Well, that's pretty cool, Ryan. Have you found that providing those resources, providing those signs, has been an effective way to get more people involved?
It's been super effective. We've had a lot of, once groups start organizing with us, they usually organize with us again. This go around was usually I'm really slammed with printing. This go around was a lot easier because so many of the groups just still have signs that we printed for them months ago and banners. So once you have them for a long time. I usually print extras. So especially the banners, which are outdoor banners with grommets in them. They're good to hold or hang somewhere. So yeah, no, it's super helpful. I think making it as much of a protest in a box as possible. Just add people. That's what I want to give people. If you have the people, I want the press to be taken care of, the signs to be taken care of, the slogans, whatever you need, we got you. You just bring people. So that's the hard part, though, is finding the people.
That's awesome. We can all learn from that. Well, Veterans for Peace, as I said, has been promoting both of these weeks of action in our various media, and we'll continue to do so over the coming days and weeks. And then beyond this week, like you say, the weeks of action are a great way to pull people together and concentrate our energies. But the struggle goes on beyond the weeks of action. I know, I'm sure that Veterans for Peace, and particularly those of us here in the Nuclear Abolition Working Group of Veterans for Peace, look forward to further collaborations with the Diffuse Nuclear War Coalition. So thank you so much for being here. Before I let you go, though, see if there's any other questions or comments here. Seems like we've learned a lot in less than an hour, and we might have a relatively short meeting today, which I don't think anybody will complain about. But I want to give people a chance to ask questions and comments while you're still here for a few more minutes. Ryan, anybody? Hollis, you got anything to say? Well, Helen Jacquard has something to say, my partner here.
Well, I just wanted to say that although I haven't done a lot of that through the Golden Rule website and Facebook page, I'm going to promote these now, not only on the website and the Facebook page, but we've got a list or a email list for the Golden Rule supporters, and I will definitely put it out to them probably tomorrow. But it's, finally finishing up 100 different cities with the Golden Rule Peace Vote means that I'm able now to do even more to promote peace in Ukraine and nuclear weapons abolition.
Great.
I wish I lived closer to water so I could have visited.
Yeah. So that's great. Any other comments or questions at this point? Oh, I wanted to mention there's so much going on right now. It's really a great time for mobilizing. Of course, the UN International Day for Peace was just, yesterday. The huge climate march, and especially in New York City, 75,000 people estimated. That says a lot right there. And I noticed that a lot of the people speaking at that march were making the links between the climate catastrophe and militarism and the threat of nuclear war even. So those are all really essential connections that we need to make to build a big, broad, powerful movement. And so aside from these 2 weeks of action, and then the 26th, as I pointed out, is a also the International Day for, I forget the wording they use, basically the International Day for the abolition of nuclear weapons. And right now, it's worth pointing out that the World Beyond War conference, I guess it's an international conference online for the next 3 days, started today and goes on for the next few days. Anybody who wants to check that out, you can go to World Beyond War and find your way there. So there's a lot of synergy right now, a lot of energy. And as I said, the Week of Action for Peace in Ukraine is actually taking place in at least 30 countries around the world at a time when more and more national leaders or international leaders are joining and pressing for a ceasefire and negotiations to end the war in Ukraine before it possibly could become a nuclear war. So this is a time for us all to be very active, do a little bit extra over the next coming days and weeks. And then not only will we be making a big impact at this time, but we'll be 2-3 weeks from now, we'll have a bigger movement than we had going into this. And we'll be in a stronger position to make common cause in the future for peace and the abolition of nuclear weapons. So that's my little spiel, and I kind of would be happy to end there, but I want to give other people a chance. Greg, what do you have to say?
Yes, I was wondering about the effectiveness of local actions in the sense of, I think Hollis brought this up at one meeting, getting your city council to pass a resolution opposing, various things like opposing nuclear weapons and that kind of thing. What are the opportunities for that?
Well, short answer is I'll let Helen answer that because we've been doing a lot of that with the Golden Rule.
When you ask the city council to pass a resolution in favor of eliminating nuclear weapons or stopping the war in Ukraine, or to maybe not send any more weapons to Ukraine, you're educating both the politicians and the public. Often those resolutions are covered by local media. So it's a really great way to educate everybody and get all of us on the same page.
And both the international campaign against nuclear weapons and the Back from the Brink campaign have city campaigns going on, have resolutions ready to go. They've actually been passed in at least 70 cities and 5 states, including states as large as California. And it's surprisingly easy to get these things passed sometimes at the local level as well. There's not nearly as much resistance as there is at the national level. A lot of the mayors are also joining Mayors of Peace. So that's something that's probably included in your in some of your outreach and efforts as well, Ryan. Are you encouraging people to contact their local governments and pass resolutions, or is that something that you're not quite focusing on at this point?
We have on our flyer on the bottom, we have the phone number for the Capitol switchboards. We encourage people to call, but we're not providing like a script or anything. We don't want to get that in depth. The same reason we don't have an online action. We talked about it. Do we want that? But we don't want to, as a coalition, we don't want to look like a list building effort. We don't want to, we're just really trying to avoid all that. So we really focus on the ground organizing. And we encourage the groups to have their own, if they want some kind of digital aspect, we really encourage it.
Well, you're a fairly new coalition too, and off to a great start. So congratulations, and wish you the best of luck. And we will be participating with you in the coming days and weeks. So thank you so much again.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it.
If there's no further questions or comments, we'll just thank you all for being here, and check out diffusenuclearwar.org and peaceinukraine.org, and try to do everything you can to spread the word and be involved over the next few weeks. And we'll see you all 2 weeks from today in our next meeting, which will be more oriented towards taking care of our own business and strategizing for future action.
If you can hang out for a moment, I'll put this link to Hedges' latest posting in the chat.
What's that about? Hedges posting?
Yeah, it's about the corporate takeover of government.
So I don't really want to change the topic right now, Peter.
Oh, okay. I thought you were
but-
hanging up.
But yeah, go ahead and put the link in the chat. So that I didn't realize that was coming from Chris Hedges.
I'm just trying to find my my other document here.
And then we'll be saving the chat. We have this meeting recorded, so maybe you can end the recording now. And anybody who wants to hang out and